Hi everybody, here today to work on the unit circle. This is a topic I've had a lot of comments about and questions, so here to just burn through this and hopefully get you a square. The first thing about the unit circle you need to know are these 5 angles with sine, cosine, tangent. So I'm going to show you a foolproof way to remember them. First of all, the sine of 0 is just 0. I'm going to write that as the square root of 0 over 2. The sine of 30 degrees is 1/2. The square root of 1 over 2 there. The square root of 45 is root 2 over 2. The sine of 60 is root 3 over 2. And finally, the sine of 90 is 1, which is the same as root 4 over 2. Now, cosine, exactly the same numbers, except backwards. So the cosine of 0 is 1, root 4 over 2. Cosine of 30 is root 3 over 2. Cosine 45 is root 2 over 2. Cosine of 60 is 1/2, or root 1 over 2. Finally, cosine 90 is 0, or root 0 over 2. You know, look, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. You can remember that. That's a pattern that can stick with you. Tangent is sine over cosine. Sine divided by cosine. All these have 2 on the bottom. All these have 2 on the bottom, so we can ignore 2. See my division of fraction of this video if you need help with that. Root 0 over root 4. So we just do the sine over the cosine. That's just 0. Root 1 over root 3, which is just 1 over root 3, and it can be simplified to root 3 over 3 if you rationalize the bottom. Root 2 over root 2 is just 1. Root 3 over 1 is root 3, and finally the weird one is 1 over 0. That is undefined. So there is no tangent of 90 if there's an asymptote there. Anyway, another thing you might need to deal with are radians. Just like temperature can be measured with degrees or, in Fahrenheit or Celsius, length can be inches or centimeters, we can have radians or degrees measure the same angle. It's just a different unit. And there's an easy way to convert. All you do is you take your degrees, put it over 180, slap a pi on. 0 pi and 0 degrees are the same. For 30 degrees, 30 over 180, slap a pi on. That reduces to 1/6 pi. 45 divided by 180, slap a pi on. That is 1/4 pi if you reduce it by 45. For 60 degrees, divide by 180, slap on a pi. That is 1/3 pi. And finally, 90, divide by 180, slap a pi in. That's 1/2 pi. So that's how you convert degrees to radians. Divide by 180, slap a pi on, you're good to go. We've covered the 5 popular angles up to 90. Let's do all of them to 360. And this is going to kind of be where the unit circle concept comes in. We won't get there quite yet, but we're making our way. So here's just kind of your standard x, y axes. And all you need to know is that x and cosine go together, and y and sine travel together as well. So for sine, sine is going to be positive in the top 2 quadrants because that's where y is positive. Y and sine travel together, and sine is negative downstairs when this is where y is negative. For cosine, cosine's positive on the right because that's where x is positive, and then it's negative on the left because that's where x is negative. And then finally, tangent is sine over cosine, so plus over plus makes a plus. Minus over plus makes a minus. Plus over minus makes a minus. And here, minus over minus makes a plus. So those are the signs of sine, cosine, and tangent, plus or minus in each of the 4 quadrants. This is 1, 2, 3. Those are the 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to use this to find the sine, cosine, tangent of a bunch of weird angles that are all over this circle, not just 0, 30, 45, 60, or 90. So let me show you a couple examples of that. Then we'll make our way to the unit circle, and we'll be just about there. I'm going to start out with sine of 150 degrees. That's in the second quadrant. You can see that. because this is 180, this is 90. So 150 is going to be like about there. That's 150 degrees. And down here, this is called a reference angle, RA, reference angle. And that is how far we are from the x-axis. And that's going to be what tells me what the number part of my answer is here. Not the sign, but the number part. So in the second quadrant right here, remember sine was positive. So this sine of 150 is actually going to be positive sine of 30 degrees because that's my reference angle. It goes right here. And so now all you need to do is remember, what was sine of 30 degrees? It was 1/2. So sine of 150 is just positive 1/2. Let's do another one. Let's do cosine of 240 degrees. I want to draw that. Here's 180. Here's 270 and 90. So 240 is going to be kind of like, call it about there. Label that as 240. And so my reference angle now is 60 because that's how far it is back to the x-axis. And cosine, if you remember cosine in my chart in the third quadrant, it was negative. So this is going to be, first of all, negative cosine of 60. And cosine of 60 from your chart, here's cosine, here's 60, sorry, here's 60, here's cosine, that's 1/2. So this is negative 1/2. Let's do one more, then we'll do the unit circle. Tangent 315 degrees. Draw it. 180, 270. This is 0 and also 360. 315 is going to be about like that. And from 315 to 360, you can see my reference angle is 45. It's hard to see there. Tangent was negative in the fourth quadrant. So this is going to be negative tan of 45 degrees. That's my reference angle. And tan of 45 degrees, here's tangent, here's 45 degrees. That was 1. So this is all going to sort out just to be negative 1. So let's talk about the unit circle now, what that's all about. You've done 80% of the work here, so we're almost finished. First of all, a unit circle, it's called unit because it is expected the radius is always just 1. So I'm going to draw a circle with a radius of 1. And I want you to remember that x travels with cosine and y travels with sine. And so you're going to have basically cosine theta, sine theta, not x and y. But all the points are going to be like sine, cosine for the x, sine for the y. You're going to take like my 30 degrees. We did that one earlier, 30 degrees. What is cosine of 30 degrees? Well, it's root 3 over 2. So this point is going to have an x value of root 3 over 2. And then what was sine of 30 degrees? Sine of 30 degrees was 1/2. So this is going to be 1/2. So this just tells you what the sine and cosine is at that angle. Let's do this one right here. This is, I'm going to call that 135 degrees. So now, what's the cosine of 135 degrees? Well, the reference is 45. So for cosine being negative, cosine's negative there, and 45 would be root 2 over 2. So this is going to be negative root 2 over 2. And then what about the sine of 135? Well, sine, if you remember from your chart, is positive, and then sine of 45 degrees is root 2 over 2. So this is going to be positive root 2 over 2. Say we did like this angle right here. This looks like it could be, say this is 60, so right there, so this would be like 300 degrees. What would this point be? Well, this would be just the cosine of 300 degrees and the sine of 300 degrees. That's what that point is on the unit circle. And if the reference is 60, and we know that cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant, we're just talking about positive cosine 60 right there. That's a half. So we're going to have positive 1/2. And then sine 300 degrees. Sine is negative. 60 reference angle would give me negative root 3 over 2. So that is my unit circle. Every single dot on this unit circle is the cosine and the sine of that angle. And you can get that from the chart, and that's all there is to it. I hope this helped. Please comment. Let me know what I can do better, what works for you. I hope to see you soon.